to have.
Yes, Master.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm doing another top 5 countdown, and today I'm counting down the top 5 best villains in the Star Wars movies. And by movies, I mean saga films and not spin-offs, just 1 through 8. And I'm basing this on the character's backstory, how good that is, the character's overall motivation, and how menacing the character is. So, coming in at number 5 is Darth Maul. Darth Maul I still think is one of the overrated villains, but I have to say, even though I don't approve of the fact that he was brought back to life in the Clone Wars series, it did give him a more interesting backstory, and you could see he was kind of tortured, but still mostly selfish motivation in the Rebels series. So, since his motivation is kind of iffy and it's mostly, revenge, it's a little bit one-dimensional, so that's why he's not higher up on the list. Number 4 is Emperor Palpatine. His backstory is kind of hazy. I think it was told in a Legends book. His master, of course, was Darth Plagueis, and he ended up being the most evil man in the galaxy after the Republic fell and he became head of the First Galactic Empire. He started off as a really slimy politician, sort of working behind the scenes, pulling strings like the puppet master. And while his motivations are still 100% selfish, like, I want to rule the galaxy, he probably thought in the back of his head, I'm still doing good, even if it's just doing good for himself, because evil people never believe themselves to be evil. Number 3 on the list is Count Dooku. He is a former Jedi, trained under Thame Cerulean, I believe, one of the Lost 20, one of 20 Jedi who actually left the Order before, well before the Clone Wars, well before Obi-Wan was even being trained under Qui-Gon. Always a very unorthodox Jedi, which may have been where Qui-Gon got some of his traits. Apparently he was well respected as a Jedi, and people had a lot of faith in him even after he left the Order. But, of course, like all Sith, he was corrupted by the dark side, and I think he honestly believed he was doing good for the galaxy by leading the separatist movement, because he said to Padme, the Republic is broken, we need to start over, this isn't working anymore. Christopher Lee, may he rest in peace, was one of the best actors in the entire Star Wars saga. He just nailed his role from the get-go. Number 2 on the list is Kylo Ren. His backstory is another sort of tragic one. He was raised by an apparently loving family, although with Han Solo's itchy feet, he was always gone, and Leia was always really involved in the Senate, and Ben probably felt that neither of his parents were really there for him. And I'm just guessing that Luke was the only one he felt he could count on. But the trouble is, they kept the truth of who Anakin Skywalker was a secret from him. And so he did not find out until it came out to the rest of the galaxy. And my guess is he felt betrayed, like he'd been lied to his whole life. He couldn't trust anybody else. Plus, Snoke had apparently been influencing him somehow from a young age. So that's why he ran off. And then later came back and destroyed Luke's academy. Kylo proves to be a very conflicted character. He feels tortured. I know people call him emo, but I could understand him a little bit better thanks to the look at him we got in episode 8. I do not think this guy's redeemable. He's gone totally Minok Poodoo crazy. And now he's styled himself as the new Supreme Leader. Of course, that's the rule of all dark side users, whether Sith or not. Their mission is to seek power for themselves, and the only thing I fear, like Palpatine said, is losing your power. Of course, Ben is still lonely. He feels like he can't count on anybody but himself, and he, like all Sith before him, he wants a protege to train, somebody who he can use to his own end. So, yeah, he is a quite complex character, and he's got a very interesting backstory, and he's also pretty dangerous, so that's why he comes in at number 2. And finally, number 1 on my list of top 5 best Star Wars villains is, of course, I think you can see where this is going, Darth Vader. Darth Vader had one of the most interesting and complex backstories of any of the characters. He was raised a slave on Tatooine, grew up being bullied by everyone, but extremely talented. He had the biggest heart. He wanted to help as many people as he could because, you know, he was raised by a single mom, a loving mother, very loving mother. And when he left to become a Jedi, which was what his dream, he had to leave his mother behind. And he was having dreams, and he was always conflicted about attachments, and he didn't understand why Jedi had rules against attachments because he didn't see how love could lead to evil. But his problem was being selfish in his attachments. Not just being attached to people, but wanting to basically hold on to them as long as he could without thinking about the consequences for the rest of the galaxy. Now, of course, I have nothing against emotions. Emotions are good. Emotions should be embraced and worked with, not suppressed, as the Jedi wanted to do. But Anakin's problem, in part, I think, was being influenced by Palpatine from a young age, kind of like Ben ended up being. And while his motivations were still pure, he wanted to help the galaxy, he wanted to protect the ones he loved because he had, you know, he didn't want to lose anybody. And after losing his mom, he kind of went over the edge, but he still had a conscience. He realized what he was doing was wrong. And even throughout his turning to the dark side out of desperation to save his wife, he still had this thought in the back of his mind, this isn't right, this isn't right. And that was the conflict that Luke was sensing in Return of the Jedi. And in an ironic twist of fate, the selfish love was what made him fall to the dark side, but the unselfish love of his son was what made him finally turn back from the dark side. And his full arc of being an innocent little boy to a well-intentioned but sort of uncontrolled, emotional young man to one of the most talented Jedi in the galaxy, but someone who also had kindness at the core of who he was. He wanted to help as many people as possible, and it drove him crazy when he couldn't, and that's where some of his anger came from. And finally, his selfishness of holding on to everything so tightly that it became literally a stranglehold. And then his fall, and then his basically enslavement to the Emperor. He ended up hating the Emperor. He's like stuck in this suit. This anger is just boiling in him because he's like, I've lost everything. I don't have anything to lose. I don't care what happens now. And maybe I can bring peace to the galaxy if I could just get rid of this wrinkled old guy. But then actually finding out he still had family, he still had something to live for, he had a reason to turn back to the good side. If nothing else, just to save his son. And the Anakin side came back. It's still an amazing story arc. I have to say, George Lucas thinking up this whole story arc with Anakin's fall and then his final redemption, it was great. So that is why Darth Vader is, I think, the #1 villain in Star Wars. So there you go, guys. I know I got kind of long-winded, but that's been my top 5 list of best villains in Star Wars. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more G-rated Star Wars content, go ahead and click that little subscription button below. I apologize, immensely for my crazy off-the-wall live stream yesterday. I'm hoping the next one will be better. The next live stream is going to be Saturday, April 21st. Time to be announced. I'll announce the time about 2 weeks beforehand, and it will depend on how busy I am. In case you didn't hear it, there's good news and bad news as far as the Blu-ray release for The Last Jedi goes. The good news is my copy is ordered and it's basically waiting in the pipeline. The bad news is it's going to be delivered directly to my house for some reason, and so the reaction video is going to be delayed until, but I promise you will be getting another reaction video. for The Last Jedi. Question of the day, who is your absolute favorite villain in the Star Wars saga? And I'm talking the episodic saga, not the spin-offs, but episodes 1 through 8. Who's your absolute favorite villain? Go ahead and post a comment below. But until next time, this is the Clumsy Jedi signing off. Bye, guys.